Hello, everyone. I'm going to let everyone know ahead of time. This is going to be a interesting topic, as evidenced by the title. This video is going to be controversial, so prepare yourselves. Current year, meaning the time in which we started using the term current year, so 2018 and 2019, we have seen a whole lot of reporting in regards to pedophilia. Specifically, we have references to Michael Jackson, rest in peace, Michael, in Leaving Neverland, Kevin Spacey in appearing at his court case, Tumblr in the purging of child predators, Twitter because of the aforementioned purging of Tumblr, YouTube in the demonetization scandal 3, Revenge of Matt Walsh, and of course all of the teacher sex scandals involving underage victims. So many, in fact, that Huffington Post has a topic all dedicated to it, which disappoints me more than I can ever fully explain. So what happened? Did people just now start becoming child predators? Well, no. Proven by Kevin Spacey and Michael Jackson allegations, the concept and reporting has been around for quite some time. And of course, we have historical evidence that pedophilia has been going on for, well, pretty much the entirety of human history by a current year standard. The most commonly used trope of systematic child abuse is, of course, the Vatican, but there are also child brides. In fact, there are still those today. That one isn't talked about as much. I find that strange. But why is all of this coming to light now? Well, we as a society definitely recently took a stand against it in a firm way during the Me Too movement. And I know it's not a popular opinion, but the movement did actually bring about good accusations and not just the bad ones when it comes to bringing certain perpetrators to light and exposing bad behavior. However, we have become hypersensitive as a culture. What I mean by hypersensitive is that we are over-policing our own by the precept that if it looks like a, quote, child, it's pedo. Before I go any further, I want to explain that I will be looking at this issue by my own country's standards. I tend to agree with my country's laws on a federal level when it comes to a consent thing. So with that in mind, allow me to continue. Primarily, the over-policing is coming from Western societies doing their best to, quote, save the children. We see this most clearly in the UN proposal to ban anything that looks or resembles a child in any medium in a sexual manner. The actual resolution is called the Guidelines on the Implementation of the Optional Protocol to the Convention on the Right of the Child on the Sale of Children, Child Prostitution, and Child Pornography. Now, one angry gamer reported on this problem by citing the following passage, and there are a lot of links down below. I'm sorry, but they are all there. Quote, child pornography is defined in Article 2, OPSC, as any representation of a child engaged in real or simulated explicit sexual activities, regardless of the means used, or any representation of the sexual parts of a child for primarily sexual purposes. The qualification, by whatever means, reflects the broad range of material available in a variety of media, online and offline. It includes, inter alia, visual material such as photographs, movies, drawings, and cartoons, audio representations, any digital media representation, live performances, written materials in print or online, and physical objects such as sculptures, toys, or ornaments. It continues by saying, the committee is of the view that simulated explicit sexual activities should be interpreted as including any material, online or offline, that depicts or otherwise represents any person appearing to be a child engaged in real or simulated sexually explicit conduct and realistic and/or virtual depictions of a child engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Such depictions contribute to normalizing the sexualization of children and fuels the demand of child sexual abuse material. The interesting part about this whole debacle is that on the surface, this appears a very valid solution. No one wants kids in danger. There are very real children out there right now who have situations like the ISIS brides, for instance. Shamima Begum was 15 when she left for Raqqa. Simply looking at the Wikipedia page for child marriage, and the stats are frightening. But apparently the worst are in Africa. Why not work on a UN resolution for that first? The problem is widespread and deserves widespread condemnation. Some individual countries are fixing it, like Tanzania enforcing an 18-year-old requirement for marriage in 2016, which is even more strict than Canada's, the country, not individual territories, laws, which allows for 16-year-olds to be married. The United States is not exempt from the problem either, and yet we have a pedo problem on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Tumblr, and advertisers are pulling their support. I wonder if businesses in Indiana know that technically with consent 2 15-year-olds can be married. This information is pulled from a chart made by the Tahiri Justice Center. I urge everyone in the US, look at this shit and tell me you're not appalled. So here we are. The UN wants to ban any depiction of a person who appears to be a child in any medium, while child brides are worldwide. I want you all to think about what I just said. Appears to be a child. Ask yourself, what does a child look like? Of course, up to a certain point, there are a few major characteristics, but think after that. Think about the age, for example. If you're a guy, you started growing facial hair, or when you hit your growth spurt. Women, when you started developing breasts, or maybe those things didn't happen to you, or it didn't happen as much as it did for the other kids your age at the time. Maybe you aren't as well developed, quote unquote. And sometimes that never changes. Sometimes you would be what most call underdeveloped well into your 20s. Does that mean that the UN can ban the naughty sex tape you made with your significant other at the time of you being 20? Because you appear to lack arbitrary characteristics of a developed man or woman. And this opens up a whole other avenue if you are in transition between sexes. Holy shit. I do not know the fine details about the whole transition process, but I can't imagine you go from 32C to an 8-inch dong in a night. While that may have been crude and not the best way to phrase it, I chose to say it in such a way to drive home a hyperbole that just because you are over 18, or in transition, it does not mean you look the stereotypical form of the sex you resemble. And then there is an even darker turn one can go. What about those people who look like they are 20 when they're 15? Girls, guys, whatever. They're still children, but they don't look it. Not immediately, at least. Is the UN going to excuse that kind of behavior? Well, I certainly hope not. So this is the problem we face. And this is a real issue that we as a culture, as a community, need to get our head on straight for, because children's lives are not something to mess around with. Child exploitation is not a pedestal one should virtue signal from. This should be a no-brainer for people in charge, but for some reason, the problem still exists. Why is that? I have a theory, and it's not likely to make me friends. But it's because those people in power want it that way, to suit their own sick desires, either to line their own pockets with bribes or to do unspeakable things themselves. I am not calling anyone out, I don't know. But this does not need to be an adpocalypse, unless of course advertisers decide they want to remove themselves completely from the world. But then there's no money in that. The final thing I want to remark about in regards to the whole situation is that lolly and shota art, it is not child exploitation. For there to be child exploitation, there needs to be a child exploited. The drawings, they are not real. They have no humanity, they have no rights, because they are drawings. This is the crux of a whole lot of advocacy and arguments on Twitter right now, and I'm sure it also is elsewhere. Consider this for a moment. While I would love to be the one to throw the switch on pedos, I cannot do that. There are too many, and not all of them are on Tumblr, Twitter, 4chan, 8chan, Hollywood, New York City casting, directing boards, whatever. This is going to be a controversial opinion, but bear with me. To those pedos not hurting children who are seeking help, I would rather them have an outlet in lolly and shota art, drawn animations, drawn images, etc., than to have them hurt actual kids. I said it before in a much less serious video. What you do creepily in your basement is your shtick, that's your thing. But if we find you exploiting children or hurting them, there will be hell to pay. Parents, siblings, friends, and family from all walks of life will find you. It happens over and over. I will leave you with this video from Larry Nassar, a former USA gymnastic doctor's case, after being found guilty of sexually assaulting 3 girls. The one speaking is one of the fathers. The video is from Guardian News.
Distraught father have a chance to say something.
Go ahead, sir.
You son.
In a courtroom, we don't use profanity, but if you have some words that you would like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to say them.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
I have
Would
a
you
feeling.
do that?
That is not how
Yes
our.
or no?
No, sir, I can't.
Would you
do
give me
that.
1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system.
Well, I'm gonna have to get
This is the reaction most of us have when we find out that our loved ones are in danger or have been abused. And for an actual abuser, I have no sympathies. But that's all I have for you today. If you have a comment, be sure to leave it down below. Share this one out if you feel I did a good job. I'd really appreciate it. But thanks everyone. I'll see y'all soon.